There are two needs that every child has. The first one is attachment. We are the only species on the planet that if we don't physically and emotionally attach to another human being, will die. The other need we have is authenticity, the pursuit of our authentic power, of who we were meant to be in the world and what we were meant to express, okay? Well, because none of us have been taught any of this, what most parents do is they create a mini me. If it's a boy, he's gonna play football and hunting. If it's a girl, we're gonna go shopping and play dolls. That's not your job. Your job for 18 years, a minimum of 18 years, is to create an emotional environment where they are allowed to experiment and explore what they want to be, whether that's a stripper, whether that's a banker, it doesn't matter. It is not your job to dictate what their authenticity is. That's what creates the worst day cycle, which is in my book and everything. And that's what every kid struggles with. Now, the secret to doing that, remember, we need attachment. The secret is what's called attunement. What that means is when my child, regardless of any age, for me to be the most effective parent to help them create attachment and grow in authenticity, is my emotional environment is the single greatest determiner of our child's success.
Your internal emotional environment, or the one that you create in the home?
Your internal. We all have stress, we all have fear, we all have struggles. Well, parents inherently think, well, they just know how much I love them. They don't. Kids don't. And if you're in a bad mood, because are you married or, okay. Yeah. If you two are fighting, they know it. And an infant, they feel it, all right? If you're stressed, if there's some emotional discord in your life, kids are like a sponge. They feel everything and they will become what you feel. I mean, studies show if mom's stressed in pregnancy, it'll literally change the DNA and the total outcome of the child's life. Wow. Just in pregnancy. The whole DNA structure of the child changes. So the single greatest key is for you and your wife to become emotional experts in your own trauma, your own struggles, all of that, so that when life hits, you lose jobs, whatever, and your child comes running to you, you have the emotional skill and ability to put aside your fears, your worries, and be right there. What's going on? How are you doing? You can attune. Attunement isn't taking them to Chuck E. Cheese. It's not doing things, which is what most parents think. It's the ability to be present emotionally. So Nate, what do you want to talk about? What brings you in?
Well, I think there's two main things, and they might be kind of tied together. I'm kind of interested in your perspective here, but two big priorities for me in my life right now are being an awesome dad to my 18-month-old daughter, and then I want to be an awesome coach to the clients who have trusted me with their physical and like mental fitness and health.
Okay.
And I would just love some perspective, kind of seeing if I have any blind spots that are areas that I don't even know that I'm not necessarily being ideal in. So,
okay. What do you think is your biggest roadblock as a father and your biggest roadblock as a coach?
Well, in terms of being a dad, I don't necessarily know if I can adequately say like, this is my big roadblock, because to be honest, like at 18 months, I'm not really doing a whole lot of parenting, right? My job is kind of keeping her alive. But now that she's kind of moving into talking, like, having more personality, it's kind of coming to like, now we're trying to set up boundaries and structure and stuff. So it's a little bit of like making sure that, the expectations are clear. And then if the expectations are unmet, we talk about those things, or, like I don't want to be I want to be like a great dad that's firm and not getting rolled on by my my daughter, which I think could very easily happen to me because she's just so cute. Yeah. But I also want to make sure that she's raised with some structure and not necessarily just like let loose to her own devices. So I think that could be like an issue. I could see that where I could fall prey to that.
Have you read any parenting books, taken any parenting classes, anything like that?
I have not yet.
I think the way to do this, because without getting into specifics of what you're struggling with, it's tough to go down that path. But the suggestion I give to any parent, and my belief is that, I'm going to kind of teach for a minute, okay? I personally believe my morals and values are and none of us are taught this, when we have a kid, we have a moral obligation and responsibility to go become an expert in learning how to parent. Following what our parents did isn't enough. Think of it. We go to college and all these things to get careers. And the single most important thing in life, being a parent, none of us take a class in. And we go, well, I know what to do. I know what my parents did. Well, who taught them? So let me ask you. I'm going to put it to you this way. I'll give you an analogy. Let's say you're a contractor and you'd been building homes for 30 years. Would you allow somebody who followed you around for 18 years, but never was allowed to touch any tool, read the blueprints, do anything, would you at 18 years old then expect them to be able to build a house? They haven't touched or done any of the work. They've just followed you around.
Definitely not.
Why?
Because they don't have any experience.
Well, and that's how we all parent. We think, well, I followed my parents around for 18 years. I know what to do. How?
That's assuming they got it right.
That's assuming they even knew how to build a house, which they didn't. Let's face it. Not a single parent knows how to parent because we don't teach this stuff.
That's totally fair. Like, I've spent years and years becoming an expert in health, fitness, and coaching. So why should I not, make sure that that's like a big priority for me right now with parenting, which is obviously more important.
Yeah. So the first key is to go become an expert. And that's reading books. And the single greatest key, I'm going to explain, there are two needs that every child has. The first one is attachment. We are the only species on the planet that if we don't physically and emotionally attach to another human being, will die. The other need we have is authenticity, the pursuit of our authentic power, of who we were meant to be in the world and what we were meant to express, okay? Well, because none of us have been taught any of this, what most parents do is they create a mini me. If it's a boy, he's going to play football and hunting. If it's a girl, we're going to go shopping and play dolls. That's not your job. Your job for 18 years, a minimum of 18 years, is to create an emotional environment where they are allowed to experiment and explore what they want to be, whether that's a stripper, whether that's a banker, it doesn't matter. It is not your job to dictate what their authenticity is. That's what creates the worst day cycle, which is in my book and everything. And that's what every kid struggles with. Now, the secret to doing that, remember, we need attachment. The secret is what's called attunement. What that means is when my child, regardless of any age, for me to be the most effective parent to help them create attachment and grow in authenticity, is my emotional environment is the single greatest determiner of our child's success.
Your internal emotional environment, or the one that you create in the home?
Your internal. We all have stress, we all have fear, we all have struggles. Well, parents inherently think, well, they just know how much I love them. They don't. Kids don't. And if you're in a bad mood because are you married or, okay. Yeah. If you two are fighting, they know it. And an infant, they feel it. All right. If you're stressed, if there's some emotional discord in your life, kids are like a sponge. They feel everything and they will become what you feel. Studies show if mom's stressed in pregnancy, it'll literally change the DNA and the total outcome of the child's life. Wow. Just in pregnancy. The whole DNA structure of the child changes. So the single greatest key is for you and your wife to become emotional experts in your own trauma, your own struggles, all of that, so that When life hits, you lose jobs, whatever, and your child comes running to you, you have the emotional skill and ability to put aside your fears, your worries, and be right there. What's going on? How are you doing? You can attune. Attunement isn't taking them to Chuck E. Cheese. It's not doing things, which is what most parents think. It's the ability to be present emotionally. So what'd you do today? Tell me all about it. Wow, why do you like that? I'll give you a story. It was one of the few times I was a good parent because I was learning about all this. So I was discovering all my mistakes. I had my youngest daughter, we were playing Dora the Explorer. She had this, big, what do they call it? Dollhouse-like thing.
Yeah.
And we're playing with it. And for whatever reason, I was very attuned that day. I wasn't controlling or anything. And I was like, okay, so what do we do? And so I'm moving one of the characters around. She's like, no, no, no. He doesn't do that. Well, my normal thing is, well, it's mine. And why not? I was going to argue with it. Well, I went, really? So what does he do? Well, he goes here. And I'm like, okay. And literally every time I tried to initiate any sort of action on my own, she'd go, no, 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 that's not what he does. He does this. And I let her. I sat there and I'm like, it was amazing. I was laughing and smiling. I'm like, so what does he do? And what does she do? Like, I just let her have power. Because remember what authenticity is? Our inherent power. And what every parent does. No, don't do that. Don't be that. Crushes their authentic power. Now there's a difference. A 3-year-old trying to run across the street, no, that's life-saving.
Mm-hmm.
A 3-year-old playing in the mud, that's not life-saving. And so you learn, and so by becoming an expert in these things, and I can give you some resources on some great books to learn about that, but the key is go become an expert in your emotional discord.
Okay.
When you can work through that, you will model for your children how to do that. It's less about correcting their behavior, which is what most parents think parenting is I'm going to mold them into a behavior that's right. I mean, yes, we have to teach certain behaviors, but they think that's what parenting is about. It's not. It's about emotional stability. That's what creates a healthy, happy child.
Okay.
Is emotions. Okay.
All right. I feel like I can definitely wrap my brain around the emotional stability piece. I think I can create an internal atmosphere that would be beneficial for her. I'm a fairly stable person in general. I do see myself, kind of what you had mentioned earlier about trying to make her mini me, like almost asking like a baby to be like, I want you to act like an adult, and that's not. And that's going to create the wrong expectations for her. Probably, do something.
How do you do that? Give me an example.
I think. And I don't know if this is right or wrong at all, but I do ask her to communicate with me and say, what do you want? And like communicate clearly, which is at a young age, it's probably not possible to even like identify.
Just learning language.
Right. But like, when you're frustrated or whatever, and I'm like, well, what's going on? It's probably hard for someone who's that young to be like, I'm feeling this way because of this thing that happened. So I just have to remember to let her be a kid, do her thing, and just be.
Back off and move more towards empathy. Wow. Sounds like you're really frustrated. Sounds like you have a lot of feelings. I love it when you express your feelings. Is there any more you need? Like when they throw tantrums, there's a great video a couple years ago that was circling Facebook or something of a 5 or 6-year-old throwing a massive tantrum. And the father, and it was like in an airport, most are like, stop, no, don't do this in public, like totally shame the child. And he got down on the child's level. He just looked around, wow, keep going. I love it when you express yourself. Sounds really angry. Just let them work it out. But see, we squash, we have a whole culture for years, centuries that says, don't be emotional, don't cry. That's what kills kids. That's the worst thing you can do is squash them emotionally. Create an environment where they can express it, learn how to do it in a healthy way, without shame, without being denigrated. Then they learn how to process through it. And that's what makes them more stable emotionally. The suppression and dampening of it it'll come out. drugs, alcohol. I mean, look at the culture today. Now we're condoning pot. We've condoned alcoholism for years. Now we're condoning drug addiction through pot. In some states, they want to legalize mushrooms. Like, I don't judge, but any substance that takes you out of reality, you're medicating. Vicodin, all of those things, So that's emotional dysregulation. That's why people think, well, it calms me. Well, listen what you said, smoking pot calms me. Why do you need to be calm? Because you don't know how to relax. That's emotional dysregulation. Well, why don't you go deal with the source of that instead of medicating? But no one wants to do that. And that's what I'm trying to get across to you is the single greatest key is your ability to grow emotionally. Your child will suck that in like a sponge. That's the single greatest lesson you can teach your child. Focus less on behavior, more on emotional stability. I mean, you get my point.
Yeah, I hear you saying.
Behaviors are important, but
okay. I feel like that kind of transfers in like nicely to coaching clients as well.
Tell me more about that.
There's kind of like a juxtaposition of on one hand, I feel like and we had talked about this in our previous session, I really want my clients to be super successful. And so I feel kind of the obligation to go that extra mile for them to like follow up and like not necessarily let them struggle, build, like figure it out on their own and kind of have that autonomy to fail or fail forward. But because I don't necessarily believe that like a lot of times people will do the things that they say they're going to do. And so I feel obligated to be like, follow up. Hey, did you do the thing? Did you eat the meal? Did you go for the walk? Whatever else. But on the flip side of that, I'll switch into the opposite mode where I'm just like, I expect you to like be an adult here, and have, like more rigid expectations and.
So you're black and white is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, black and white.
I'm either all in supporting you or you're on your own.
Yeah, no, it's extreme like support and hand holding or complete lack of empathy.
Okay.
And I have a hard time treading the line there because I feel like for a long time I've been I see that like the hand holding, that kind of the savior complex thing that I feel like I have going on. And I don't necessarily like that about myself or my coaching style. So I almost go the opposite direction in trying to get rid of it. Being like just kind of shutting myself off, stonewalling, and making it a very black and white issue. And how could you not? And how almost how dare you?
Yeah.
So.
What are the two feelings? What's the feeling of when you are hand holding, and what's the feeling when you're shut down, I think is how you said it.
I think the feeling of hand holding, if I go kind of to the root of it, it's almost like you are looking up to me and you're like, wow, you're such an expert. You're making this happen for me. You're so good to me, that sort of thing. And
so when someone is looking up at you and placing all the responsibility for their success at your feet, what do you feel?
A lot of pride, probably. A lot of like a very positive form of responsibility. Like, yeah, I am the man and I am responsible and I can handle this. Capable.
Okay. What do you have
admired.
What do you have over them?
What do I have over them?
Yeah. Do you see what you have over them in that moment?
Like what am I like holding over them, or like how am I?
There's a discrepancy in something. You have more of something than they have.
Power?
Yeah. Amen.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. It's a power dynamic.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
It feels good to have more power.
Yeah.
The other side is it feels almost like power too, though.
Yes.
This feels like empathy, or not empathetic, but like the good side and the bad side almost of the same coin.
Yes. And so First thing that comes to your mind, whether it was yesterday, 40 years ago, don't filter it. Whatever pops up. When was the first time in your life you felt powerless?
I was 11 years old and my mom had just dropped off my sisters at school. So I was home alone. Someone knocked on the front door. I didn't know them, so I didn't open it. They came around the back door, broke into my mom's room, came inside, and I grabbed a steak knife and hid under the bed in the house we were living in. And he banged on my door, and I definitely felt powerless in that moment.
Wow, that's frightening. So he didn't find you?
Did not find me.
What happened? Do you remember the feeling in that moment?
Yeah, I definitely remember feeling like if he were to come in, I did not know what was going to happen to me. It was not like I was not in control of that situation at all.
And where do you feel that in your body? When you put yourself back in that moment, where do you feel it?
Chest, stomach,
Okay.
kind of like a cold, almost like a little bit of like twitchy.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed you do bounce your leg.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've noticed, you bounce your leg a lot.
Yeah.
That's a trauma response.
I also have a lot of energy, so.
Yeah, but the people will do that. And a lot of that energy is stored. It's almost a PTSD-like stored of, you'll see that a lot. I mean, there's a great book by a guy named Bessel van der Kolk, and also another book I'd encourage you to look at, Robert Levine. They're both experts in PTSD. And the first one is called The Body Keeps the Score. And so like I watch people's bodies, and that bouncing, that's trauma. People just, oh no, I have energy. I'm like, no, yeah, you do. That's the stored trauma we haven't released. And it shows up in our body. And that's like scientifically everywhere. So that's something afterwards I can show you what the book looks like. I think it'd be a great help to you to understand when that leg's bouncing, because you're probably detached from it and don't recognize it. And that'll be some of the process for you to realize, wait, what am I really feeling right now?
Okay.
Oh, wow, man, I'm really anxious because of such a traumatic moment like that. Here's what happens. Our thermostat was here. A moment like that, this becomes the new normal. Like you said, I have a ton of energy. Well, is that energy or is it fear? That's a discovery process for you. And it happens to a lot of people, adrenaline athletes and all that. That's because their childhood was so. David Goggins, his book.
Yeah.
Listen to his childhood and listen to him. He talks about how he made the choice to dissociate from, remember attachment, authenticity? He chose to drop his authenticity because he couldn't get attachment with his dad. And he developed, if you remember my book, The False Persona We Develop in Shame, to try and get our power back. He says it in his own words, I developed a new super ego. Nothing will hurt me. It's not even him. He's developed a persona that's so much more powerful than the abuse he suffered, but now he's in control of it. All he does is abuse himself. Every look at his, the ultra stuff he does.
Yeah, running on broken feet.
It's pure self-victimization. It's the worst day cycle. It's right there. His own description, if he read my book, he'd go, oh my God, I'm destroying myself just to survive my father's trauma. I haven't recovered from it. And that's kind of what you're describing with what you're going through.
I feel like that black side of this is that David Goggins mentality. How dare you not just make the choice?
And so when you were sitting there underneath the bed, what were you thinking and feeling?
I remember not wanting to call the police because I didn't want to get in trouble. I remember ending up calling my grandpa instead. I think I was honestly afraid of just super unsure, had no idea what was going on, but also had a distinct fear of getting in trouble as well as a result of whatever was happening.
Yeah. And so you see Do you see how that correlates to either side of how you deal with your clients? What you just said, getting in trouble.
I don't.
Well, do you see how both clients are in trouble? This one is in trouble. They can't do it unless you do it for them. And this client's in trouble because they won't do it.
Do you feel like when you say that, do you feel like they're in trouble and with
It's
me?
your perception.
Or like they're in trouble, they're having trouble?
What I'm getting at is because of the worst day cycle, we end up picking and replaying the events, the traumatic events from our childhood. And we put ourselves in those dynamics. How else in childhood, what was the dynamics with mom and dad?
My parents split up probably a few months before this. I feel like I had kind of an intense childhood. I wouldn't say.
Tell me more.
I don't have a lot of memories of like stuff before probably like 6th, 7th grade, to be totally honest. I don't like, I have like, I'll get them occasionally, or I'll catch a smell and I'll be like, oh, that reminds me of a thing. But I don't have a ton of like vivid recollections. I know it was pretty rigid in the house. We had a lot of rules that we would follow.
Who was the most rigid? Mom or dad?
I think they were both pretty rigid. I think mom was a little bit more anxious. She worried a lot more about what could happen and stuff. I think dad was more of the disciplinarian. But I think they were on the same page about like, we grew up in a very conservative Christian home.
Yeah. So it sounds like you mentioned earlier, I don't want to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a constant theme?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't necessarily even think that I wasn't prone to getting in trouble. If you ask anyone, you'd know
but there was that aura. Mm-hmm. I know what's going to happen if I get in trouble.
Yeah.
With mom or dad.
And it wasn't like the bell was going to come out or anything like that. I just definitely, I didn't want to be in trouble. I did not want to be like probably seen in that way of being naughty or being a bad kid.
Do you have memories of the way they'd look at you? Or did they have certain phrases they'd say when you were less than perfect as a child?
I don't remember.
Okay. It's very common. There are many people who've never been through severe trauma in childhood, like from their parents. But it can be a look, that dissatisfying, and that sense of, man, I can't be in trouble. And so my point is for you, that's a big piece of, your life. This is how impactful this is. Your life was threatened. There's a stranger in the house. And what's your go-to? I don't want to get in trouble. It's not okay for me to be safe. What's most important in this household is I keep my parents happy. Remember, we talked about parenting. Mm-hmm. Attachment, authenticity. This is what parents do. If you go become your authentic self, you get in trouble. And so you wanted to be your authentic self. My God, there's an intruder. I should call the police. But what happens if I do? I'll get in trouble. So I have to squash my authenticity to keep attachment with mom and dad. The only way they'll love me is if I do what they want. Do you see why emotions are so important in childhood? You had a massive feeling of I have to do what they say, or I won't be loved, I won't get attachment. And so you squashed your authenticity. And so the moment of that loss of authenticity created a sense of, I don't want to get in trouble. And so now you have clients where you're reliving that dynamic. On one hand, there's a part of you that's like, oh my God, I want to rescue that little kid under the bed. Right? I bet there's a lot of similarities between those types of clients who need a lot of hand-holding. And well, the question would become, do they need the hand-holding or do you want to give it to them? Do you get the difference? Mm-hmm. Which would you say it is?
I for sure want to give it to them. I don't. Like, they probably, some of them need it, probably some of them don't.
God, I love your honesty, because that's the right answer. Yeah, that's what happens. And then vice versa, boom, no. Okay? So the key for you to get out of this dilemma and get into moderation is to really sit and work through. First of all, it's giving yourself permission to let those memories come up of how you weren't good enough, of how you got in trouble. How did you have to drop your authenticity to create attachment with your parents? So that you were a good little boy. Not Nate and what Nate wants, but what mom and dad want. Because I have to be a good little boy first and foremost. I can't even call the police when my life is threatened. Do you get the impact of that choice? Mm-hmm. How does that feel? Have you ever considered the impact of that choice, of what the bind you were placed in?
No, I'd never even thought about it in that context. Or like how I didn't ever even really thought of the fact that like I didn't call the police because I didn't want to get in trouble. That was just kind of like there, but I never really brought that up. So how's
that sit right now? What's going through you right now?
If I'm being honest, I feel like I'm like disassociating from it.
Yeah, I can see it.
I feel like I kind of push it away.
Yeah. I love the honesty. So now, how else do you push it away? Are you willing to go there and see how you're using that to stay away? What's your dissociative techniques?
I don't know. It feels mental to me. Like,
okay, good.
Like almost like I just take my brain like above that thing, whatever that is.
When you have the memory, when you say go above the thing, is it from the side? Do you go to the side or do you go above?
When I'm like, if I'm dissociating, do I go to the side or do I go above?
Like, people have memories and they'll remember of watching it through their eyes. Others, they'll remember it of I'm watching it happen from the side. Others, they're looking down on the event like this way, watching it happen. And so like in this moment are in your dissociative techniques, like you said, you get above it. Are you saying you go up here and look down?
No, I'm saying like almost like I push that event like down and away from me. And I can feel it in my body now that we're talking about it. Because I feel like I've kind of let it come back and I can feel that pit in my stomach and I can feel my knee wanting to move. I can feel a little bit cold. But when I stopped, I felt like I kind of just like took a breath, pushed it away, and then like regained my entire like control of my body, which right now I don't have of my left leg. I can feel it moving. I can feel my gut kind of churning.
So is this your first experience of letting all that stuff in?
Intentionally, probably. You know, obviously I feel like I've felt this before. Don't think I could have identified it. Especially kind of like the lower body things. I've never noticed that this is in like an emotional piece.
Yeah. When it goes to the lower body, legs, it's because we're stuck. We don't want to move forward. And so that's why it will go into the legs. It's a metaphor for, no, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to let this go. I'm not ready to. I'm not ready to step into and claim my life. Trauma goes to our body in different parts of our body for different reasons. It all gets stored in our body. That's all illness and disease is trauma, emotion that's been circling through our body, and finally we feel pain somewhere. Well, I would never tell someone don't take pills, but you're just treating the symptom, not the cause, and you're proving it. So when you feel that in your legs and in your body, are you kind of bouncing in and out of being able to feel it? Or are you able to stay with it right now?
I'm sitting in it right now.
Okay. Tell me more about it.
About the sensations?
Yeah, just whatever the feelings are.
I do feel kind of like a cold pit in my stomach. I feel like my legs are like right on the verge of just wanting to like do this a lot.
and give me feeling words
Okay.
of the bouncing. What does that feel, that energy feel like?
Tremor. Tremor is the first word that comes to mind. Something that's like unstable.
So you feel unstable. Keep going.
Jittery.
Jittery.
I wouldn't call myself an anxious person, but I do feel like a sense of anxiousness right now.
Yeah.
I think that's the stomach.
That big breath, what did you feel? Why did you need to breathe?
To regain control of this conversation and keep talking.
Are you okay right now?
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't know if I could let myself not be good at this point, to be totally honest.
Okay. Good for you. And I think the level of this, I don't know that this is the right environment for it. I would just, to be honest with the cameras, this is a pretty heavy PTSD reaction, and I'd rather you be more safe than on camera.
All right.
So I think I want to back off of that for your protection.
Okay.
But what I'd encourage you to do is journal what this was like, because you got just a glimpse of how absolutely terrifying it was underneath that bed and in childhood. And it's much bigger than that. But that lets you know what you learned you said it. I'm not going to say it. Tell me again, what do you do when something gets a bit too big for you?
I get bigger.
But there's also an action you take to protect yourself.
I rise above it. I push it away.
You take a deep breath and you push it. You're gifted at suppressing your pain and being detached from it. Now, do you see now why you would bounce between polar extremes?
Because if I go too deep into that one extreme, then it's like, no, I have to cut off that emotion because I don't like how it feels.
Exactly. And so you get kind and loving, and then when this starts to be too much, can you recognize what the thoughts and feelings are that send you here? What do you say and do to yourself that send you here?
I don't know if I can actually recognize them. I've felt like I've been making a conscious decision to do so.
What do you mean to
change to being more like kind of that David Goggins hard ass style? I feel like I've kind of tried to like purposefully adopt that rather than just like slipping into it.
Okay.
Like when you said that he created like a super ego, like that really resonated with me, because I feel like that's where I was like, I have to become something that can handle what I'm dealing with.
It's a false persona. I was watching, I'm not trying to disparage him. My heart breaks. His childhood was horrific, and he openly talks about it. But I literally listened to an interview of him, Jay Shetty, just 2 days ago. And he literally described how he shut himself off and created this persona. Well, that's not authentic. That's a maladaptive false persona to survive trauma. And remember my book. You've read my book. Remember the shame and denial portion. Because our trauma is so severe, remember it goes trauma, fear, shame, denial. The trauma is so severe, it creates overwhelming fear. I'll skip it, but when we get to shame, we develop a false persona. Because remember attachment, authenticity, I can't be authentically me, right? Because I'll lose attachment. Like his dad was so abusive, he could never claim himself. And so his words, he was always overweight and destroying himself, right? Because of how his dad treated him. So in that moment, he finally went, you know what? I'm going to create something that's more powerful than my dad. And the only way to do that is to destroy myself even more than my father did. That's how I get him back. If you like, read my book again, the shame and denial portions, and then listen to his interviews, and you'll go, oh my God. Like, it is textbook how the cycle works in everybody. And yet everyone's championing, yeah, go kill yourself. No, that's, and he even said in the interview, people always ask, are you happy? I'm driven. He's not happy. There's no happiness in self-destruction. He can't say he's happy. That was Joe Rogan. He couldn't say it. And that's what I'm not trying to disparage him or you. What I'm trying to draw attention to is how horrific the trauma is, and we dissociate from it so heavily. Like you're saying, I know we can sit here and go, listen, I did that for years with my mom. It's not that big a deal. So my point to you is, as far as the fathering and all of this, a control mechanism. Talk to me, right? I want you to think back, mom and dad, how did they do that? How did you have to be something so you didn't get in trouble? Do you have any memories? Specific?
Not really. No memories of, like, you have to be a certain way so you don't get in trouble, or you have to do a certain thing. And like, if you were if you were asking me if I could even like name a time I was like disciplined in any form or fashion, I really couldn't do it. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I don't think it happened often, but I still don't know.
Yeah. Did you have brothers or sisters?
I had 2 younger sisters.
Did they get disciplined? Did you see that? Mm-hmm. They did. How?
We did get spanked in our house.
Do you have memories of being spanked?
Only one when I was a little older, and my mom broke the wooden spoon on my butt, and I laughed at her, and that was the last time.
Do you remember what you did?
No. I don't. I remember it was in the specific house though, so I was definitely like 11 plus. I don't know what I could have done at that point that would merit a spanking, but.
Any of the memories you have from childhood, do you remember them through your eyes or?
No, all from the side, like you were talking about.
Okay. That's good. It's better than the other option.
Top down?
Yeah. The reason you can't connect to your childhood or have these memories is you're right. You have pretty high levels of PTSD. And so you've dissociated from your life. So dissociation is always characterized by someone remembering from the side or above. Up above, that's a much longer process to reintegrate back into their body and back into being able to see the memory out their eyes and be present in it. You generally find that with child molestation, rape, things like that, is they'll generally go above. But the level of fear in your household was severe enough that you learned to go sideways. And so you watch from here. You're not present in your childhood. Okay. And so that's why a lot of this is, I don't know, Kenny, I can't answer it. And the unpacking of that isn't something we can do
Sure.
right now.
I think it gives a lot of like context though. Like, I think that I've been kind of obsessed with like muscle building and, being in great shape and stuff like that from a young age, probably due to a lot of these things. Similar to what you're talking about, David Goggins, having to like create something that was more powerful than whatever it was that I'm running from.
Yeah.
So I think that gives a lot of context to why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
Also curious though, like the concept of superego or like creating this like disparate persona. I like what I think I've created. Like I like myself and I like who I am. And if that's created or not created, I've kind of taken like solace in the fact that you can reinvent yourself and kind of create who you want to be. What do you think about that?
I don't have anything against the concept. the question is it really what we like, or is it a defense mechanism? I can't answer that for you. That's a journey. Like, I'm not here to say,
Sure.
oh, it's wrong. Or, you know, I can hear, at least in David Goggins' story, he's literally using the description of, here's how you avoid pain. Like, that's clinical. Like, I don't want to disparage him. Like, I mean, it's what we're all doing, because we don't talk about this stuff or teach it. He's just doing the best he can. So there's no, you know, denigration of it. But the statistics, you know, when it comes to bodybuilders and trainers and things like that, the statistics are through the roof. That, you know, in most cases, it's over 90% there's sexual abuse. They're trying to get huge. They're trying to build, I'm big and powerful.
Build that meat armor.
Exactly. It's, you can't get me. I'm bigger than you now, you know. But yeah, it's in, like, in the Bessel van der Kolk book, he talks about, it's, you know, bodybuilding and fitness competitors and all that. It's literally almost 100%. All of them have been sexually abused. And that's the defense mechanism, you know. And so there's moderation. Like, I see you as a moderate. I don't see you as grandiose. I'm going to be massive. I'm going to be this big presence, which is that's usually what you see. What I see is someone who loves to be fit. You know,
I think it started that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's been a long journey, right?
Of course. Now, the journey for you will be to discover, it's like me with sports. I played sports I never wanted to, I see now. But did I get a lot of benefit from it and learn a lot of things? Sure. I don't begrudge myself for being an athlete and any of that. But ultimately, it wasn't authentic to me, whereas this is. Like, here's the thing. This is the only career in my whole life I ever chose. Every other one was chosen for me. So it's things like that, when you learn the process in my book and you learn to dig in, you yourself will parse out, well, actually, no, fitness is really me, or maybe parts of it, I'm dissociating or running from. You know what I mean? There might even be certain exercises. The only reason you're doing it is to avoid the feeling of something. But that's something we'd have to do a lot of work on for you to be able to find what those layers are, what the fingers are, is a better way of saying it. So I'm not trying to categorize as anything and everything. There are many layers to it. But yes, in general, a fitness career is about, I felt pretty powerless. And this is a great way to have power. Now, that doesn't make it bad. The question is, it's like I talked about in my book, The Day I Saw My Darkness. What you're describing is you're caught in your darkness. Giving yourself away and doing the work for your clients, and then being a bully. Because of those extremes, that to me sounds like a red flag. That moderation is somewhere in here. And that would be the journey for you. Is I hear the authentic piece of I'm a trainer, but how authentic are these extremes? What are your thoughts on that?
It feels to me like kind of like that you called it giving yourself away, and I like the way you put that. It feels to me like that almost feels like becoming, like again becoming powerless. And to avoid that, rather than being like pulling back moderately, I go, no, I have to be mean about this. I have to kind of become aggressive. I have to like show my teeth a little bit more. So I feel like the journey here is going to be like knowing who to like give to, rather than trying to give to everyone and feeling like I'm being taken from, and then responding, being a little bit more medium, and then, you know, not just trying to give to this person and help this person and save this person, but like being a little bit more reserved, honestly, on like the front end, and then like kind of like towing the line into, I'm a pretty kind person. I think that I generally have everyone's best interest in mind and want to see people succeed and everything else. So I think I need to like just kind of like let that happen, but don't force the
Would you like some suggestions of how to navigate that?
Yeah.
I call it the gas pedals. It's like dating. You get started, and if someone goes to 60 right away, it's like, ooh, that's scary, right? But so you start working with a client, and you push a little, 5-8 miles an hour. You see if they come with you. Oh, they are. Okay. They're doing the work and stuff. Okay, let's go to 15. Ooh, do they drop back to 3? That probably sends you to 60. I'd back off to 3. In other words, the trick with coaching is they have to choose it. Even though they're paying us, like rarely do I ever give advice. I mean, that's really the only time you should ever give advice is when someone pays you. But even then, most don't want it. That's why I give suggestions. And so, like with clients, I'll see that. I let them suffer. That was one of the things I learned was my wanting to fix somebody was my codependence. I needed power. I needed validation. I needed to steal from you to say, look how great your life is because of me. That's a red flag. I don't have that much power. Like they spend 1 hour a week with me. All the other hours of the day, they're doing it on their own. Yes, I have knowledge and wisdom, but they choose if they use it. And so my wanting to be a savior is a red flag. It's just like a child. Create a space, an emotional safety place where they can choose what their authenticity is. And if all they want, they said they want to lose 50 pounds and they only lose 10, that tells me there's a life experience waiting for them. And I'm not going to get in the way of that. They haven't hit enough pain to lose the 40, and my hunger to fix it is going to rob them because that's about me. They have to want it. That's why the gas pedals. Now, if they come in and they're going gangbusters, no, I'm losing this 50. Well, then I'm joining you on it. And I'll go 55. I'll stay 5 miles an hour ahead of you. So I'm guiding you. But if they pull back, then I pull back. That's my job, is to let them be who they want, because even in a training environment, no one's allowed them to be their authentic self. It's much more powerful when they find it on their own. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
The other suggestion I'd give you is to help with this, sit down and write out what your needs and wants are, what your morals and values are, because this is a battle. They're two extremes. Where are you? Like kind, not kind. What normally happens, what creates this is in here, you're giving yourself away. What that means is you're saying yes to things you want to say no to. I call it the being nice syndrome. I do thing for everybody and a rage builds up and you finally go, I'm done. I've done everything for everybody. That's it. I'm going up here. That's the inability to say no. And that's, that's in my book. You can read about how to start saying no. But morals and values, needs and wants, what's negotiable and non-negotiable. In other words, you have a client who, I don't know, maybe you have a thing about chocolate cake. No client could ever have chocolate cake. That's just non-negotiable. They can have carrot cake, but no chocolate cake. You have to honor that. If that's your belief and they eat chocolate cake, nope, you're not my client. Otherwise, you're giving yourself away. That's what I mean by needs and wants, morals and values, and what's negotiable, not like with my clients. If I don't take clients unless they're ready to do the work, they're people that are hungry. That's non-negotiable. I'll turn people down. I won't work with people that aren't ready to do it. And everyone gets to decide, okay? And so do that. That will help you moderate this extreme because you're bouncing up here because you're giving yourself away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that kind of explains a lot of that like kind of internal turmoil I've had when I'm like, I'm just so frustrated because I feel like I've just not been great about saying no to things that I don't want to do.
Yeah. A homework assignment I'd ask you to consider is for the next week. I don't care what the request is. I don't care. say no first. When you leave here and you go out to eat, what's the first thing a waitress say? Would you like some water?
No water.
I do. I want you to say no, and then I want you to think about it. Do I like water? Actually, I do. Actually, and I like it. I never realized, but I don't like ice in it. And when she comes back, I've thought about it. I'd love some water with no ice, please. I'm dead serious. And that's the easiest one to start with, something simple like that. You're going to start finding, oh my God, it's really hard for me to say no. But the most empowering, because what you're caught in is a power dynamic, because you didn't have any as a kid. The most empowering word in the English language to get our authenticity back is no. Not from a power place, but from a needs and wants, morals and values place. And that's what's getting you caught. So I literally, for the next week, your wife goes, you want to take the trash out? Not right now. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And that's the other thing. Like some people, it's hard for us to say no to. So this is your workaround. Someone, a client, who's tough for you to say no to, or what's a situation?
Oh, my wife for sure. But
give me an example of something that would be tough for you to say no to.
Oh, anything like, hey, can you watch Renna while I go do this thing? Renna's our daughter.
Honey, I'd love to, but let me think about that and I'll get back to you. That's not a yes or a no. Like, let's do it a little bit different. Tomorrow, would you watch Renna while I go run these errands? Mm-hmm. Versus in this moment. Right. You're sitting in the house watching TV.
Gotta say yes to that.
You're kind of stuck. But projected plan of, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. That's not a yes or a no. And so usually what the other person's like, oh, well, of course they'll do it. It takes you out of that bind. It buys you freedom and you can sit and look, what are my morals and values? What are my needs and wants? Yeah, actually that works for me. Or no, it doesn't.
Okay.
All
right. Some good homework. I like it.
Awesome. I think we'll end there.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks so much for your wisdom and expertise, Kenny.